welcome two great leaders for the Institute for Healthcare Excellence. They are based in the United States. We have Florida and Minnesota on this call now, and we have Dr. William Maples, who is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Institute for Healthcare Excellence. He's the founder, president, and CEO for the Institute, a national organization supporting care redesign and cultural transformation in delivery systems across the United States. Dr. Maples earned his undergraduate master's in oncology and medical degrees at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and completed his residency and fellowship in medical oncology at the Mayo Clinic Graduate School of Medicine. He also practiced medical oncology for 25 years at the Mayo Clinic and helped lead the Mayo Clinic quality, safety, and experience journey, after which he served as Senior Vice President and Chief Quality Officer at Mission Health in Asheville, North Carolina, where he helped Mission Health navigate cultural transformation and become a top-ranked U.S. health system recognized for its impeccable quality and safety. Joining Dr. Williams today, we have Jennifer Krippner, who is a Chief Experience Officer for the Institute for Healthcare Excellence. Jennifer is a graduate from the College of St. Benedict in Minnesota with a bachelor's degree in liberal studies and communication. She's a fierce advocate for connecting people, concepts, seen and unseen, that positively move the patient and employee experience forward. Her ability to lead, inspire, manage, and mentor employees, providers, and community made her perfect as the Chief Experience Officer at the Institute for Healthcare Excellence. I am personally thrilled to have you here with us to talk about this very important message for healthcare excellence in such an important time during this time of uncertainty and rapid change in the healthcare field. So thank you so much for taking the time, for being with us, with more than 2,000 global participants today who are very eager to learn about what you have to say.
Thanks for having me.
As we get our slides up, I appreciate the nice introductions for myself and for Jennifer. It makes me reflect on just how many years we've been at this, and somehow made me feel a little bit old today. So, but I appreciate that, Jose. We'd like to spend our time with you to think about thriving, the ability to recover and bounce back, and the ability to reach peak performance no matter what your profession is. That's what we're hoping we can achieve and our teams can achieve. And with that context, how do we leverage positive psychology to really achieve these three goals of thriving, recovery, and peak performance? Next slide. So next slide, Jennifer. So as we start, I just would like each of you who are with us today to think about a peak experience that you've recently had in your job or career. What made it a peak performance or peak experience? What motivated you to excel? What were you doing? Who were you working with? What were you working on? How did the people around you impact the experience? What were the results? And in your mind, just summarize some of the key answers to these questions. And I'll just give you a few seconds to think about that. And next slide, Jennifer. So when we think about peak performance, these are a summary of the responses that we typically have received when asking individuals to go through that exercise. There was a theme of expertise in action, the fact that you can master something and you have and that you have an impact on what you're mastering, that it's meaningful, that it really was a team sport. It wasn't you, it was usually a team sport. It was unapologetically optimistic. I love that phrase, but there was a lot of positivity around the work that happened both from you and the team members. There was a connection to life purpose. There was openness, flexibility. So you maybe needed to change course and you were able to do that. the courage to fail. Whenever we chart new territories, sometimes we do fail, and we have to have the courage to do that. And then again, with this connection to purpose, going for what really matters. Hopefully some of those themes that are on this slide bubbled up for you as you thought about your own peak performance. Next slide. So when we think about excellence in the modern healthcare environment, we're really talking about maximizing the opportunities for those peak performances. We want to have teams actually experience those peak performance, and this requires tapping into intrinsic motivation. Let's talk for a minute about motivation and then loop that back into the positive psychology. So there are three motivational types. There's level 1.0, survival, 2.0, extrinsic, and 3.0, intrinsic. And let's take a minute and talk about each of those. So level 1.0 is survival, and that's really a primary motivator, or survival or loss aversion. So in your profession, it may be being fired or not fired. If I do this, I'll survive. If I don't, I may get fired. And leaders access this particular motivator by threatening survival or something similar to that. Okay. Let's move on to the next level of motivation, 2.0. And this really comes from the Industrial Revolution. And the primary motivator is receiving rewards and or avoiding punishments. Leaders access this by sticks and carrots. In the healthcare profession, there is often reimbursement for performance on various quality metrics. That's an incentive. And there are actually consequences or losses if you do not meet those incentives. That's just one example of a motivator 2.0. We still often operate, at least in healthcare, within this 2.0 mode. Now let's look at level 3.0. And the primary motivator here is attraction and excitement. This particular picture are children that are wearing Tom's shoes. You may or may not be familiar with that story, but that particular organization, for every pair of shoes they sell, they provide a free pair of shoes to needy children. So this actually connects to purpose. There's some play in it. There's connection to people. There is a sense of mastery when you're actually motivating people to sell these Tom shoes for that. And there's a sense of control and autonomy as well. That's how leaders tap into this level of motivation. Next slide. So when we think of each of these, when we think of 1.0 survival mode of motivation, there's really strong negative emotions that are connected with that. And the stick and carrot, the extrinsic mode, there's minimal positive. If you get rewarded, there's some positive, although it's not really powerful, but there's moderate negative emotion. Whereas if we think about tapping into the intrinsic motivation, there really is strong positive emotions. And so this is where we again need to be if we truly want our teams to reach peak performance. This is where tapping into the positive psychology to really enhance those strong positive emotions comes into play. Next slide. What we're really talking about is actually tapping into the intrinsic motivation, into the positive sort of emotions that happen with that to achieve thriving. And when we talk about emotional thriving, we think about things that where individuals have a chance to use their strengths every day at work. They feel like they're thriving, they're making a meaningful difference. Again, you get the connection to that intrinsic motivation, purpose, and difference, and they have something to look forward to at their job. That's how we measure thriving. Next slide. When we think about the ability to recover and bounce back quickly from difficult situations, which happen every day in medicine and every other profession, we measure that by the individual's assessment of their ability to bounce back quickly. after difficulties, keeping a positive outlook despite what happens, adapting to events in life which they can't influence, and having your mood recover if there are frustrations and setbacks that you experience. Next slide. So when we talk about this journey of moving from burnout, and we've talked a lot about this over the past decade, unfortunately, we've not seen the dial move in the right direction in terms of less burnout. And what we really want to move to is not only zero burnout, but we really want to move to thriving. And the two summary statements at the bottom of the slide were sort of aha moments for me as I was working in this space, that burnout at its core is the impaired ability to experience positive emotions. Burnout at its core is the impaired ability to experience positive emotions. Whereas thriving, or an outstanding culture at its core, is the cultivation of positive emotions. So to really move from burnout to thriving, we have to focus on how can we cultivate positive emotions, those same positive emotions that come from intrinsic motivation, to really move ourselves and our teams to thriving. Next slide. The emotions that we're talking about are in the center of the slide here. Think about your day and the opportunities to experience joy, hope, gratitude, inspiration, awe, interest, amusement, pride, serenity, love. Think about the opportunities that exist, and we have to take each and every one of those and capitalize it and tap into that. Because when we do that, it acts like a tiny engine. It keeps us going, that ability to bounce back when things get tough. We can keep moving forward. And it also has an undoing effect that if we did have a negative experience with negative emotions, tapping into the positive emotions in small doses frequently will actually undo the negative effect that happens from those less than optimal experiences. Next slide. And when we put this in the context of continuous improvement and reaching peak performance, we have to tap into these positive emotions in every step that you see here on the slide. Our processes have to be developed, and we need to hardwire ways to tap into positive emotions with the way that we conduct our work. The technology that we introduce has to be able to tap into positive emotions. And the culture that we create as leaders, as well as individual team members, has to be able to cultivate positive emotions. Next slide. So there are several skills that individuals and teams can actually use to tap into the positive emotions, create trust and teamwork. They're listed here. Appreciative introductions, check the skill of check-in, how do we give feedback using a feed-forward framework? How do we recognize emotion and respond appropriately? How do we jointly set an agenda and change the question from what's the matter to what matters to you? Simple change, but in some ways simple skills, but hard to execute. How do we reflectively listen? How do we incorporate presence or mindfulness? And how do we create always events in those processes that we do every day that sometimes can drain our energy? We're going to focus today on the three skills that are outlined in blue here, and really center around the skill of appreciation and gratitude. We're going to demonstrate these and have you experience some of these and then share some reflections on how that actually taps into positive emotions and helps us all get to that peak performance that we desire for ourselves and our teams. So with this, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer to introduce appreciative introductions.
Great, thank you, Dr. Maples. So our first skill that we're going to practice today is what's called appreciative introductions, and this is at the beginning of a meeting. And so, Dr. Maples, I'd like you to welcome to our meeting today. And before we get started, we each received a question in our chat function today on our virtual meeting as a way to introduce ourselves. So because it's just the two of us in our meeting today, Dr. Maples, I'd like to just start out our meeting with introduction of your name, your role, how long you've been with the organization, and then if you could just read your question and then answer the question. And so as we get started, I think I'll start first. So my name is Jennifer Krippner. I'm the Chief Experience Officer at the Institute for Healthcare Excellence. I've been in my role for about 4.5 years. And my question is, what is a great experience on a snowy day? And I'm so glad I got this question. I live in Minnesota, so we have many, many snowy days. And one of my great memories of, or great experiences of a snowy day is usually the first week in December. We have horse-drawn carriage rides in one of our small towns here in Minnesota, where we get to sing carols and have hot cocoa and go through the city with some of the Christmas lights. So that's my great experience that I look forward to every year.
Yeah, thanks,
so
Jennifer.
I'd like you to go next.
It sounds wonderful, particularly when you have all that snow there in Minnesota. So
yes, exactly.
So I'm Bill Maples. I'm a medical oncologist, and I've worked with the Institute for Healthcare Excellence for the past 10 years now. And my question is, tell me about an exhilarating childhood experience that still gives you a thrill when it comes to mind.
Ooh.
And yeah, so I was thinking about that, and I remember I used to live in a neighboring state of yours, Wisconsin, and so we had those snowy winters as well. But I remember taking our toboggan. I know that toboggans aren't so popular anymore, but and we went to an actual toboggan slide where they hoist you up and then they shoot you down at a pretty fast speed, you know, down a pretty steep hill. And just being able to hang on and complete the toboggan ride was exhilarating. And I always remember that, and I always wonder, you know, if kids are still able to kind of enjoy that sort of thing. It's a little different than the sledding experience. Yeah. Sounds
very exhilarating. Wow. I haven't experienced that in Minnesota, but it sounds very fun and dangerous. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Right. Great. So a little debrief on the appreciative introduction skill that we just practiced. So as we reflect on that, several things happened, I think, that I'd like to talk about. You can see that the questions that were used in this practice were positively framed. And I think what that does is really tap into those positive emotions that Dr. Maples was talking about earlier. It also does create some level of vulnerability. It also really, I think, helps promote that psychological safety as well. And I think it really wanted us to tell our own story. And I think when we do that, it increases that engagement between team members or between people that are in your meeting itself. I think also it's something you can do with a large group of people. You may not go around the whole room, but you could pair people up and begin to create that energy in the room, even if people know each other. I didn't know that about Dr. Maples, and I've known him for 4.5 years. So it's something that can bring a team closer together. Also, if you know you're going to have a sensitive topic, perhaps during a meeting, this might be a way to start that meeting as a way to really have a positive framing to the beginning of your meeting for that day. So I just challenge you to think about maybe a meeting that's coming up that you might use this skill or tool as a way to bring more positive emotions and employee engagement, team engagement into your practice of meetings that you have, or perhaps huddles or different environments that you have in your workplace. Any reflections, Dr. Maples, as we move into the next skill?
No, I think you nicely summarized, Jennifer, and certainly if anybody's interested in trying this, if you need any suggestions about what appreciative questions, you can certainly contact Jennifer and she can help you out with that. I would also say, just for a moment for the audience, think about ways introductions usually go within your organization and your meetings, and how much of it you're listening to, how much of it you remember, how much of it is really engaging, versus the short little demonstration that Jennifer and I shared with you. And then ask that question: are you more engaged? Are you interested? Do you remember anything that was said when you actually bring this little flair into the way that you can introduce? So thanks.
Great, thanks.
So moving forward, again, on the theme of appreciation, I would like each of you to take a moment and think of a time when you received sincere appreciation from a colleague or friend. 2 questions for you. What did you experience? How did it make you feel? But the second question is equally important, and it's different. What impact did that receiving appreciation have on you? As you reflect on that, the typical responses here are, I really felt good. So again, we're tapping into the joy, we're tapping into the gratitude, we're tapping into maybe even some love being expressed when we think about those positive emotions. And what impact did it have? Usually it's a little bit more difficult for people to tease out, but as they talk about their experience, they will say, you know, I really felt like I could keep going. I would want to do that again. It motivated me to continue the journey. Sort of that resilience factor that we were talking about, the ability to recover and continue on going. This is how powerful receiving appreciation is. And if we think about ways that we can certainly appreciate the teams around us every day, small doses frequently. It doesn't have to be a big celebration, but small doses frequently. We have a tremendous opportunity to tap into positive emotions. Now, on the other side of this equation, when we think about giving appreciation, this was a study that was done with some physicians. One group actually, in the gray here, just continued their daily work without any specific interventions or any alterations. They were sort of the control group. The group in blue, those physicians were asked to write 1 gratitude letter to somebody who had done something amazing for them. It took them less than 5 minutes to write. And what happened here, they measured happiness on a scientifically validated scale and depressive symptoms on a validated scale. And the group of physicians that wrote the 1 gratitude letter had increased happiness and decreased depressive symptoms for 1 month after writing the 1 letter. So receiving appreciation is incredibly powerful, but giving appreciation is equally powerful. So to demonstrate this, next slide, we'd like you to take the next 3 minutes and think of someone who has done something amazing for you. The person can be alive or no longer with us. The person has contributed in a big way to your well-being. And spend 2 to 3 minutes writing a brief note. And we really want you to pick up a pen and paper and actually do this. Write a brief note telling that person what they did, how it impacted you, and also important, what this says about them as an individual. Be genuine, kind, appreciative in your note. So we're going to be silent here for the next 2 minutes or so, and would like you to just experience, writing 1 gratitude note. you can begin to wrap up some of your thoughts as you're writing here. Okay, as we come back together, just for a moment, just reflect on what happened to you as you were writing. Usually, individuals will say they felt really good while they were writing it. They felt connected to that person that was really impactful in their life. They really felt a level of appreciation for that individual and for their own life. So it really allowed them to step back and not take for granted the things that have happened in their life and been impactful. And so there's usually a lasting impact of gratitude on happiness when we do this. It connects to the receiver's hearts, but it connects to our hearts and deepens our emotions. We actually become more vulnerable, and when we become more vulnerable, the psychological safety is increased, which we all really want in our teams, and it allows us to tap into that discretionary effort to give more to continue the journey. So we encourage you to think of ways that you can, in a very, very intentional way, hardwire appreciation into your daily work. It may be that you start your huddles with moments of appreciation, or that you begin your meetings or end your meetings with a moment of appreciation. But ways where you intentionally stop and pause and open the space for you and your team members to truly show appreciation. With the gratitude letter, there have been some organizations that have actually once a month at one of their department meetings, they will write a gratitude letter to somebody within their team that has been really, really impactful. So there are ways to intentionally hardwire this and not just say we're going to try to appreciate, people more next month. That'll work for a day and it'll go away. You need to really think about how you're going to intentionally hardwire. So with that, I'll turn it over to the last skill surrounding appreciation to Jennifer, which is the appreciative debrief.
Great, thanks, Dr. Maples. The appreciative debrief is a great way to close a meeting. And today we're going to close our session with the appreciative debrief. And Dr. Maples and I will practice this with you today. So Dr. Maples, as we close our session today, I want to take a few minutes to just go around the room or the virtual session today to appreciate our time together, our 35 minutes together today. And so as we do that, I'll just start by saying a few brief words about what I appreciated about our session today. I have two things that I'd like to appreciate, and one is just your incredible leadership for this work around the country and really bringing this work to so many people, and especially this theme of gratitude and positive emotions today to the attendees. I'm so grateful for that. And Jose, for your support and professionalism and encouragement throughout this process. Just very appreciative of you and how easy you made it for us to come to this session today. So Dr. Maples, I'll turn it over to you if you want to go next.
Yeah, so thanks, Jennifer, and appreciate the comments that you provided. I want to, first of all, thank the 2,000 plus participants for really being with us, and I trust that you actually did the exercises that as we walked through each of the different skills today. Thank you for taking the time and the effort. Jose, really, I love your introductions and your spirit. I wish I could capture some of that. It's wonderful. And I'd like to actually thank somebody who's not on this screen, but behind the background, and that's Brian Rafael, for all of the work that he has done to make these conferences possible. And I'm sure he probably gets a little bugged when I send him emails saying I need a little clarity on this, but I really want to thank him as well. And Jennifer, thanks for everything you do.
Great. So that was our practice of the appreciative debrief. As we reflect on the appreciative debrief, there's several things that just happened. As a way that we close a meeting, we closed it with positive emotions, which really can help increase engagement of the team. And it also helps follow through on actions discussed, which can help create more buy-in at the end of the meeting. It's also a little bit harder to have, quote, kind of the meeting after the meeting, or being negative in the hallway about what just happened during that meeting. And it also ends the group discussion with a form of appreciation, which can promote teamwork and collegiality. So those things are really, I think, helpful in creating, a higher level of engagement, a higher level of buy-in, and really just a great way to build that team engagement. So I think as you process the skill of the appreciative debrief, I challenge you to think about how you might incorporate this into your daily workflow. Do any of you attend meetings? I think all of us attend a lot of meetings, whether in person or virtual these days. I think, could you add this to the end of your agenda to really think about how do you hardwire this? How do you keep this in front of your team so that people get used to the practice of using appreciation on a daily basis? There's other ways that you could use this. You could use it, have a flip chart in the room at your meeting. People could maybe write a word or two of appreciation as they leave the meeting. Perhaps you could have a flip chart in the break room, so at the end of the workday they could add a word or two about what they appreciated about their day. There's many ways to incorporate words of appreciation or gratitude into your workday. And so as we think about all the different things that we talked about, incorporating positive emotions into our work, into our teams, into how we go about our day, we just really encourage you to think creatively about how you might incorporate these into the work that you do, and even into the work that, or not into the work at home, but into your personal life as well. So as we move into the end of our presentation, I'd like to just turn it back to Dr. Maples.
Just a very quick summary. Remember, our journey is to go from emotional exhaustion, which at its core is the impaired ability to experience positive emotions, to actually creating an environment that is cultivating positive emotions. And we hope that we shared with you 3 different skills today to tap into those positive emotions that you can use immediately, the next hour, whenever you're back with your teams, and try it and see really what happens. I think you're going to find that you and your team will move to the thriving and peak performance. Next slide. So if you have any questions about the skills that we shared, I mentioned if you were more interested in some of the appreciative questions, please reach out to Jennifer. Her email is here. Happy to help at any time, and we're happy to take questions. Next slide.
Very well, very well. Thank you so much for lifting our collective spirits with this session. So Jennifer, I'm gonna kindly request that you stop sharing the presentation right now, stop sharing the screen. I'm gonna come back, but in appreciation for your positive message and the uplifting of our spirits, I will say that I had to change my background here to illustrate a bit more about what we're dealing with. So we're looking for, we want to be that, right? Yeah. You know, it's easy to be down here, and I appreciate you bringing us to this stage one at a time. And I can guarantee you that everybody in this session has had their spirits lifted to a different level, and it's a higher, better level than when we started. So I very much appreciate you guiding us through that journey. But don't listen to me, because you may think that I'm biased. I have confirmation bias. I'm gonna share with you the feedback from others. So Keith Cleanscales, who, by the way, if you didn't watch his presentation, he was one of the speakers on day one. And Keith Cleanscales talked about creating an environment where great people and great ideas connect for innovation in the government sector in Florida, as a matter of fact, and Palm Beach County. And he led us through this incredible journey of positivity that, to a large extent, that you talked about here, this human side of improvement and innovation that so often gets overlooked or brushed over. And he says, I love this. I'm seeing the connection between positive emotions to my premise on good attitudes needed to obtain peak performance, is his comment. Gabriela Pereira is coming in from New Jersey, and she's saying, such an amazing session with practical, very tangible actions. Thoroughly enjoyed. Oh, and by the way, I did do every one of the exercises that you prescribed, during the session. So a real connection here with the audience, and we're very grateful for that. Now, there are other themes that have emerged, and I want to ask you about this. And this one is for you, Dr. Maples, to get started. At what point in your medical career you thought about and you realize that there's got to be a better way, that you have been in oncology for many years, and at some point, was there a trigger? Was there an experience? Was there just the experience over time that made you reflect and think that there's got to be a better way? And it was not just a technical medical way. It's this way of this culture of positivity that we discuss here. When did that come about?
Yeah, I can almost Jose give you to the minute that it came about. And I didn't necessarily know all the answers. I didn't really know the positive psychology part of it. I mean, I may have had ideas, but I didn't really have it really refined. But I practiced as you introduced me at Mayo Clinic, and I really treasured the relationship that I had with my patients. And in oncology, sometimes the outcomes, as you well know, are not always what you would hope for. But there was always that joy of really helping somebody walk through a difficult time in life. And I remember the day that one of the administrators knocked on my door and said, Bill, I'd like you to actually work on, be one of our physician representatives to really figure out what is it that we need to do to create an optimal experience for our patients and for our colleagues, because we have tried to really create that and we're falling short of really what our mission statement is. And so how do we get there? That's when it began, and it really has been a growth journey ever since then.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Another theme that has emerged has to do with the fact that these are such important concepts that don't get talked about as often. And part of it is because there's this separation and almost a kind of dehumanization of professional work. And in healthcare, it could be the doctor that feels inaccessible and a bit distant. In a industrial operation, could be the senior vice president who is not connected with the professionals. There is this idea of separating our emotions from our professional self. So the question is, how do you overcome some of those barriers and you start having these conversations that you have shared with us here in our organizations? There is a level of risk, vulnerability, courage that's necessary. Any suggestions on how people can get started on this direction?
Jennifer, why don't you take that?
I think one is you just, I think you have a few people in the room. Let's say you start with a meeting. You as the leader, you take the risk yourself. You have a few people with you, do it, and you invite. You don't pull people in, but you invite and you open the space for it. And I think you be consistent with it. And as you see other people join in the exercise, you begin to start to see the humanness of people, leaders, as people. And you start to see those connections build and people will join in. Dr. Maples, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I love that, Jennifer, and I think going up another level here, I think we need to remember that no matter if you're a physician or if you're in a non-healthcare profession, that we gravitate to our strengths. So, and we have two things we need to accomplish in a conversation, and one is departing knowledge and what to do, and that's what we gravitate to. And a lot of times we miss the other equally important part of the conversation, and that is connecting to the emotions. And we aren't, even though in healthcare you think that we would be trained because we deal human to human all of the time, we simply don't. We take for granted that people have the skills, but they don't. So you need to actually start there and realize that you've got to invest in providing some skills for your team to be able to move forward in the right direction. Then you can find one leader or one member of the leadership team, it doesn't have to be the CEO, that may understand it. And once you try it in a small dose, people will see the tremendous impact, and then you can build from there.
Thank you so much for that, and I speak on behalf of the audience here. That was very helpful also how you showcase and role played some of these very small behaviors that and actions that we can take, like the appreciative introductions. I mean, we don't have to have a launch, right, of a positive culture event going on. We can introduce some of these concepts in small ways to our daily routines. And then I bet that some other people are going to be paying attention, saying, you know what, that was really good what you did in that meeting. I'm going to start doing some of that. Do you agree that that's a good way of getting things started as well?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, I could be talking about this topic with you two for the next few hours. Unfortunately, we're right on time, and I want to share our deep appreciation for your expertise, for your guidance on such an important aspect of cultural transformation for organizations. So we are all better off professionally and I dare say spiritually as a result of this conversation. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise with our global audience today.
Thank you. Hope the rest of the conference is really outstanding. Appreciate all your work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. William Maples and Jennifer Krippner with us from the Institute for Healthcare Excellence on building positivity in our culture, and they gave us some very tactical things that we can work on in this strategic framework that on the human side of culture, business, and digital transformation that we all are engaging on as part of the work that we do. So fantastic insights from great leaders who are creating positive change today in our world. We are going to take a break, and when we come back at the top of the hour, I'm thrilled to welcome Peter Carr, who is a lecturer at the University of Waterloo in Canada, and he's going to talk to us about improving the probability of our transformation success through collaboration. So very much looking forward to Professor Peter's insights on how we can do that and how collaboration plays a pivotal role in transformation success. So we'll see you back at the top of the hour and with Dr. Peter Carr.